Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another. Hang on, I just turned on my light. There we go. Welcome back to another Fundamentalist Fails. It is Friday for me. It may differ for you because you may not be in a hemisphere that is in concordance with mine, but it's my favorite day of the week because I get to just outline some very strange and very odd religious beliefs that I don't agree with. Now, this one is a bit different because I've never done anything on Scientology before. Now, I am aware, I'm maybe painfully aware that Scientology can I have heard that Scientology can be very litigious. I know that in America they have been labelled as a vexatious litigant. That is not true of Australia. They basically vexatious litigants, i.e., people bringing lawsuits on sort of baseless grounds in order to suppress speech, is done on a case-by-case basis. So, but I have read on the internet that they are a vexatious litigant in America. And I have to be careful with what I say. So just up front, sort of L. Ron Hubbard did outline this idea of attack the attacker. So basically, any criticism is met by incredibly hostile attack, legal attack, and I think, you know, my opinion is that seems to be true. So I have to be careful with what I say in this one. So just up front, I will say that I may be referencing some factual events that have happened in the past. Any evaluation of them is my opinion, and shouldn't be construed as a official evaluation of them by any kind of authority. Look, okay, I know this is getting long-winded, but I'm sort of, you know, this is the problem with our society, that you can silence people, in my opinion, by basically taking legal action against them. Look, just to add, the opinions of Mark Reed are not the opinions of Mark Reed atheism, and they are just opinion. So please just take this as opinion, as my opinion. I'm not in any way a psychologist. I do not have that. So it is the opinion of a just a person on the internet. That being said, we are going into the so it's a video. It's quite old, actually. It's sort of over 10 years old, but it's actually looks pretty damn official, and it was on a channel just called Scientology, which is strange because it only had like sort of 19,000 subscribers, so not a ton of them. But it basically is an outline of the way that they perceive problems and how to overcome them. So this is usually the realm of psychology, psychiatry, but I have heard that Scientologists really don't like psychology and psychiatry. They do, in my opinion, maintain that Scientology sort of it doesn't hassle the school of psychology and psychiatry. It basically says we disagree with their methods, which I don't know how that provides a difference, but they do say there is a difference. So I think it's to avoid any legal trouble. There has been in the past where they have, for instance, sort of somebody that hasn't been on medication, they've had lawsuits against them. But as far as I know and as far as I'm aware, because they sort of don't like medications, as far as I'm aware, they've sort of haven't been held responsible for someone, you know, sort of encouraging people not to take their medications. But that has been a lawsuit that has come up. So Left-Handed Jedi's got it right. Yes, this is sort of due to recently, and this is sort of the events that I was talking about. Now, these are sort of factual events that have happened, but my evaluation of them is my opinion. So people have been speed running Scientology. So basically, what does that mean? It means that So speedrunning is a gaming term. It basically just means somebody trying to do and complete a game as fast as possible. So they basically will get down to, milliseconds kind of thing on trying to complete, say, a racing game level, like the fastest possible, or complete a Mario level, Super Mario Brothers level, the fastest possible. And there's a number of tricks and things they use for this. What some kids have decided to do, when I say kids, it's varying ages, mostly in their teens, is go into a Scientology building, which are usually open to the public, and run through them as fast as possible, trying to film whatever is in them. So speed running the Scientology building, trying to get through it and document it all as fast as possible. Now, I'm in two minds about this. So there was a famous Scientologist that came out, or ex-Scientologist, I should say. What's her name? Lana Remy, I think it is. Give me one second. Ex-Scientology. Leah Remy, sorry. Leah Remini. Remini? Yeah, Leah Remini came out and said, stop doing that, you're just scaring people, and it reinforces the perception in Scientology that the outside world is dangerous and they need the church's protection. And I do acknowledge what she said. That's what she said. Obviously it isn't against the law to go through a building that is open to the public, which usually they were, I guess. It's not against the law to do that. It is against the law to trespass. It's my opinion that sometimes protest is, it is against the law to block a street, for instance. But I think that sometimes political protest, and that's just my belief, that political protest does require violating the law. And if this is political protest, then I think it does draw attention to the violations of the church. Now, on investigating this, a lot of it has been just TikTokers trying to get clicks. So I think I'm really in two minds about this, because that's kind of a really horrible thing to do, to scare staff and, scare the people there, sort of to get clicks or get views, or, sort of breaking the law just to get TikTok views isn't really what people should be doing. However, and I'll sort of say this is a big rider to that. And, as I said, if you're doing political commentary, I think that maybe breaking the law is acceptable if it is a sincere form of protest. I don't think this is. However, I will say it has drawn attention, especially among younger teenagers, to how secretive, in my opinion, and how how opaque, if that's the right word, like non-transparent, Scientology actually is. It does worry me personally that Scientology is, like, they don't like people knowing what they're doing. They don't want people to know what you're doing, and they're not very welcoming until you're actually inside the organization. And that, historically, in my opinion, has not been a great situation when a religion doesn't want you to see what they're doing. Okay, that historically, in my opinion, that hasn't been great. So I think that I'm in two minds about it. The niece of L. Ron Hubbard came out and sort of said, that she liked what they were doing because it's showing just how sort of insular they are. Or, I mean, I'm paraphrasing her words, of course, but, it shows sort of how dangerous they are, I guess. But, that's her opinion. I sort of see both sides. I really do. I really do. But this is sort of so, apart from that, I'm going to do a show a Scientology thing. Again, this is just my opinion on it. Don't sue me, because this is just my opinion and my reaction on a Scientology video. So this is the cause of suppression. So they have this term in Scientology called suppression, right? And suppressed people. Now, usually they do, as far as I know, have a sort of wide variety that applies to, but generally it's people that don't believe in Scientology or actively work against Scientology. So as far as I understand it, and this is just an honest understanding, or my honest understanding of it, they sort of use, like, if I was criticizing them, they might label me a suppressor, a person who is suppressing, right? Like that's what they might do. But I think it can sort of have different meanings depending on context. And of course, I'm not an expert on Scientology. This is just the AI overview, so take this with a grain of salt, of course, but suppression refers to actions or individuals believed to be actively prevent, squash, or hinder human progress and well-being. Well, I wouldn't want to do that, but it's my opinion that Scientology suppresses human progress and well-being. Maybe not progress, but definitely the well-being part. I think that it's... yeah, very strange. Very, very strange one. So this is the causes of suppression. So the causes of people doing this, which is a bit weird. Oh, that music. Well, okay. This sounds like a you'll notice this as we go along, right? It seems to me, my opinion is, it seems like a corporate video. I swear I've heard this music in a corporate, like, you know, welcome to the company. Here's what our mission state. You know, I swear I've heard this before. Like, I swear it's corporate music.
Why does someone who is doing well in life suddenly worsen or begin to fail?
Look at this lighting as well, right? Someone doing well, it starts to fail because a light bulb blew. Like, come on. Come on. This is obvious manipulation.
It's almost as if some people are living their life on a roller coaster.
Great interview.
Thank you.
You'll be hearing.
Well, I think we're, you know, my opinion is we're all living life on a roller coaster. I don't think anybody has, I think the idea of a, you know, perfect life is not, you know, I think that this whole idea that you've got to present a life that has no ups and downs whatsoever is really bad. Like, usually that comes across in TikToks and things, or you know, your social media accounts where people are, you know, they just have, oh, that person has a perfect life, nothing ever goes wrong for them. No, things go wrong for them. They just don't put it on social media. I don't know. It just seems, you know, things are going to go wrong in your life. You're going to have family members that have hard times. You're going to, you know, I feel this is sort of, you know, would you like nothing ever to go wrong in your life? It's a bit unrealistic to me, but that's just my opinion. It's unrealistic.
From this very soon.
They're up one day
Thank you very much.
and down the next. Why does life sometimes seem so stressful? And what causes us to become...
That music, though, sometimes life is so stressful. Yeah, I think that, you know, sort of, so when you do go into a corporate job or something, usually a question for interviewing they ask, and look, I haven't been in that many interviews for the corporate world. You know, I worked for the two largest telecommunications companies, mostly in the IT field, but a question they often ask you is, how do you deal with stress? Like, it's not that it won't be stressful, right? Like, stress is always going to come when you're working. That is sort of a given for life, is that you are going to, it is how you deal with it. So maybe that's what they're alluding to, but to me it seems like, oh, how do you stop that stress from coming in the first place? That isn't the question. The question is how we deal with the stress, in my opinion.
uncertain about our abilities or our goals?
Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know.
Well,
Okay, I think that's a fair answer. I think that's a fair answer. What are your thoughts on this? I don't know. That's sometimes an honest answer. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he just doesn't like... Wait, what are they studying? Maybe he just doesn't like... What's on the board? Chemistry. Maybe he just doesn't like chemistry. All right? Maybe that's the case.
Thoughts on this?
I don't know.
Well, there is an explanation for this.
It's really weird. Like, it's really weird to say, what's your thoughts on this? Like, what's your thoughts on what? Oxygen? I don't know.
Behavior, and it has nothing to do with bad luck or fate. Each of these people is experiencing suppression. In other words,
Yeah, I don't think it's bad luck or fate. I think that stress is one of those things that always come in your life. Like, I think that every single person has some form of stress that will come, like to a lesser or greater degree, and that stress will cause emotion, and that emotion will cause action and thoughts. You know, I don't think it's a simple case of it's just got one cause. You know, like if you're asking why stress comes, it can be a multitude of reasons, right? It often did, like when I did work in, like, so I worked in complaints at one point, and that was highly stressful, right? Really stressful. As you could imagine, like people are ringing up and going, this is what happened, you've got to fix it. And I'm, you know, part of your brain is, well, you're saying, yeah, I can see that. And, you know, you really, and the back part of your brain is like, holy crap, that is insane. Because, you know, telecommunications companies, large telecommunications companies famously not known for great customer service and actions towards their customers, I will say that. And when somebody has their ability to interact with modern communication, like their internet drops and they're running a business, oh boy, that is stressful for them as well. But, you know, that provides a lot of stress to you. You've got to get them to a place where they can, you know, and sort of the systematic thing that we go down is sort of fix the problem first. All right, fix it first. You know, like get it working. It doesn't matter how you do it. Get it working. Then review and assign blame, basically. So, you know, a lot of people, they will try to blame something first. Like, okay, your internet's down. Oh, it was this department. No, it was strictly, do not even look to see what happened until you actually, you know, if it helps you fix it, sure. But if you're looking to, like, how do we review and fix the process, that's later. That's later. But that's high stress, right? Like, it is high stress. And, you know, I kind of do miss it in a way. I don't miss it in certain way. I think it provided a lot of skills, a lot of things that I still use. But ups and downs is life, right? I was watching this video by this psychologist, and it was, you know, she was saying if you eliminate all the sort of negative emotions you're living half of a life, she said, I want to experience all of the emotion. I want to experience happiness and sadness and, you know, love and anger and all of these emotions, because it isn't that you have to eliminate them, because that's not what life is. It's that you have to cope with them in some way. And I did like her perspective that it is something that that even the negative emotions are part of life. And, you know, I totally get, and you know, in my opinion, we shouldn't be overwhelmed by them, but, you know, eliminating them completely doesn't seem great. But anyway, you know, we'll look at how, you know, why you're suppressed, why you're a suppressive person who's suppressively suppressed, okay?
someone is trying to squash them, hold them back, or make them fail.
No. In my opinion, no. Like, most of the stress that I got in my jobs was people who needed something because they were stressed in their life. Like, if you're running a business and your internet goes down, so you've got no ability to, say, communicate with other business people, you've got no ability to buy or sell, you're basically cut. Like, they're not doing it because they're not ringing me up because they want me to fail. Okay, that's not what they're doing. They just really need this to happen. And that, as a consequence, that provides me a lot of stress because it was my job. It's really ironic. And what I was going to say, it's really ironic that the less you care about your job, the less stress you have about it. But I'm not the type of person that does not care about my job. I do care about my job. I do care about, even with this, I do care about starting things on time for YouTube. I do care about being professional in the way that I conduct myself. I do care about that, and that does provide stress because, I have a standard that I want to meet, but I don't think that stress is being provided by, people just trying to make me fail. People's goals, in my opinion, sometimes don't align with yours, and that's okay. But, this whole idea that people want you to fail, yeah, I don't know about that one,
The
Chief.
truth is, there are certain people who are actively trying to prevent the rest of us from doing well.
So, it's time to start applying for colleges. Have you given any thought to this?
Yeah, I'd actually like to get a degree in chemical engineering. I'm interested in researching environmentally friendly biofuel technology.
So much so that if you have a purpose or a dream in life,
Oh, the counselor does not approve. Look, I think that, my opinion, this is not a good counselor. Like, seriously. I've no doubt there's some bad counselors out there, but, what the hell?
they will squash it.
Really? Years of study. I'm looking at your grades and I see that you have some aptitude for science, but everyone knows that's a highly competitive field. Have you considered your other options?
Well, it's kind of weird because he was sitting in sort of class with the elements, like chemistry class, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know. Look, Karen, Ember is God, okay? Don't. We're all gonna worship. Don't start questioning the omnipresence of Ember. Don't start doing it, okay? I don't question it. Look, this is like, yeah, okay. I think she is a terrible counselor. Like, if he's got a real passion for, he wants to do environmental things, you might want to say, oh, you like the chemistry of it, or do you like the activism side of it? Maybe a couple of questions, but that isn't necessarily her trying to make you fail, right? In my opinion, she's saying she should be, and I think a better way to do it would be to go, what part of this appeals to you, to try and find him a job that he loves, right? Like, that would be great of her. But she's not doing that. She's saying, oh, you have some aptitude for science, but, I'm going to shoot you down. And sort of say, hey, it's very competitive. Well, it doesn't matter if it's competitive if you're doing something that you really enjoy. If you're doing something you really enjoy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? So, yeah, I mean, I guess as a counselor, you may have to be realistic. Like, hey, your GPA is this, you're never going to get into Harvard. Seems a little harsh, but sure. But, I think that, is she trying to make him fail? I don't know that for sure, right? I don't know that for sure. She may just be trying to find him something he loves, rather than something that, he hates. Like, I don't know, the chemistry that he hated earlier. That he absolutely went, I don't like this. I don't know. I don't know. Just saying.
How about community college?
So how can we tell who these people are?
Scientology will tell me, presumably. Is that it's just a guess? Just a guess. Scientology will tell me who is the person that is trying to make me fail and who isn't trying to make me fail. Look, I have no doubt about it that there are some people out there who take that sort of, a malicious pleasure in seeing people not succeed, or they're so competitive they like shoving people down. Like, I've got no doubt, in my opinion, that there's people out there like that. But I don't think you can just tell it straight off. How do you tell? I think it's also a tiny amount of the population. Most people are not looking for other humans to fail, right? They're not. We're talking about people who sabotage you, sabotage what you're trying to achieve. And I would say that nobody's really trying to do that. It's just that some people, in my opinion, just do not take into account the harms that they do to others in pursuit of their own goals, right? They just go, well, if I get to my goals, I don't care what happens to that person. Like, they're not actually going out of their way to sabotage people. They are just really frigging inconsiderate. That's what they are.
Well, there are in fact only two types of people: the social personality and the antisocial personality.
Okay, in my opinion, this is complete bullshit. People are more complex. So as far as I know, in psychology, social and antisocial describe behaviors, not people, right? People can be social towards one group. Like, you can have somebody who is, say, a Christian, and their behaviors are social towards other Christians, but they are antisocial towards, Muslims and atheists and things like that, right? Like, you do have in and out groups where somebody can be very, very social towards their in-group and then have antisocial behaviors. So social behaviors or pro-social behaviors are the ones that promote sort of a social harmony. So, sharing things, being comforting, being understanding, these kind of behaviors which sort of are conducive to a social cohesion, right? Antisocial behaviors are ones that are detrimental to social cohesion. So, sort of starting fights and destroying other people's things and, really being horrible, that will cause a fracturing of that social bonds between people, right? So these behaviors, you don't just get a personality of it. It is behaviors, and they can vary to how the person, like, you might get someone that we would say, hey, they display a lot of antisocial behaviors, like they're a bikie that starts fights and, breaks the law and does all of these things, but they may be very social insofar as their bikie group, right? Like, they may have social behaviors and really promote social cohesion in a small group, but in the larger social setting, they have antisocial behaviors. So it really isn't just this person is social or antisocial. That in my opinion, and keep in mind, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I'm not a Scientologist, but in my opinion, that is not really accurate. Like, the behaviors that we have don't define us as people, right? Like, you don't just get someone that's, does some antisocial things, like they may say gossip behind people's backs, right? I think it is limited to go, well, that's an antisocial person, and then just label and identify and categorize them as antisocial because they are doing some form of antisocial behavior. That may need to be addressed in their life, but I don't think it's helpful. That person who gossips behind people's back, they may do a whole range of other behaviors that are very social. So how do you determine, just say you have somebody who's kind, nice, brings in lunches for people, loves to share cake with people and laugh with people and, go out for drinks and is very, very social and, builds those social bonds, but has a tendency to gossip behind people's back, right? Like, we've all met them at a work, right? Or I have. In every single workplace, I've met this type of person. They're very, very social, but they have one or two flaws like gossiping, or they may, they really need to understand personal space or something. Just because they have some behaviors that are antisocial doesn't make them just an antisocial personality that is categorized as bad in some way. I think it's so much more complex than that. And I personally think it's my opinion that this is so restrictive, limiting, and it's so simplified that it's just not useful, right? It's just not useful. I would see them look at me and say, I want everybody to succeed. I want everybody to be happy in their life or content in their life, have a good life. I care about human well-being. I love our community. I try to build our community. I try not to judge too harshly. I try to do all of these things. And I have a tendency to get sick of people and really take some me time because I find people to be exhausting sometimes. Like, people are usually a mix of behaviors, not just, because Mark takes, sort of time to himself and sometimes can't stand to be around people, then he's an antisocial personality and that's all that he is. I think that's really restrictive of people. I think it's very, very limiting, and in my opinion, it's erroneous.
And in Scientology, it was discovered that each have very different but identifiable behavior patterns.
It was discovered in Scientology. Okay, I'm not sure that that's been peer reviewed or in any way reviewed by any kind of scientific community. I'm not sure I would count it as a discovery then. It's my opinion that Scientology claims that this is the case. I'm not sure I would categorize it personally as discovered. And I just got to add, just as a side note, look, tangents in the chat. Look, put a tangent in the chat for your boy Mark here. But the what do they call it? The cushion kind of thing. That pattern. What do they call it? The when it's like cushions or fabric on a couch, upholstery. God, I had a mental blank. That upholstery right there, that is 100% what is on our trains in Perth, Western Australia. It is 100. That is 100% the pattern. That is exactly it. Does anybody else have this pattern on their train upholstery? Because that is exactly what we have on our trains. I'm not even joking. It is 100% what we have. It doesn't look like a train from my area. It doesn't look like it, but 100% that's the pattern. That's North Hollywood. North Hollywood. They filmed this in Hollywood. I'm amazed Tom Cruise doesn't make an appearance, but that is 100% looks like the pattern on our trains. So wow, I'm impressed. We have Hollywood on our trains. I'm so happy about that.
They each have very different but identifiable behavior patterns. For example, the social personality by nature wants to survive well and wants others.
Well, yeah, most people want to survive well. I don't know anyone that doesn't want to survive well. Is there people out there, you have it on buses? Okay, fair call. Okay. Yeah, I think it is on the newer buses as well where I am. It seems, yeah, maybe. Maybe it's like some sort of pattern that inspires calmness in people. Like, how they used to put like very neutral colors on the walls of institutions, like mental institutions, very neutral and calming colors maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not calming colors. Maybe it's energetic colors to get you amped up for work. I don't know. I'm not designing upholstery for trains or buses. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know anybody that's like, yeah, I want to make my life miserable, right? I think there is sort of behaviors that are antisocial, but it's not to, like, usually they are sort of they're behaviors that are intended to make them feel well, but they don't. They're destructive, but they're not destructive intentionally. Like if somebody has a substance addiction, for instance, it's not like they're going, well, I want to destroy my life, or I want to make things hard for myself, right? Like usually they are behaviors that they think will make them feel better or have a better life, but they don't end up doing that. So I don't think that anybody is like, well, you know, I don't want to have a good life. I want to have a crappy life. You know, like I don't think anyone's doing that. So I think that this sort of framing as, oh, well, they, you know, social personalities usually want a good life. Yeah, I think people displaying antisocial behavior want a good life as well. They're just going about it in a really bad way, in my opinion.
Others to survive well too. Whereas the antisocial personality thinks all other people are his enemies, to be openly or secretly destroyed.
Look, I have no doubt that there are people like that out there that thinks that all other people are enemies, or have a very, very competitive mindset when it comes to other people, right? Like, I have no doubt there's people out there like that. But I think that it's a lot more complex than that. I don't think that most people who are causing you grief in your life or stress in your life, personally, I don't think they're out to actually hurt you. I think that they're just doing things for themselves, and they're being inconsiderate. Like, they're not actually going, well, I wanna hurt people because they're my enemy. It's just they're doing things and they haven't thought about how it affects others. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are, you know, maybe, you know, if you get somebody who has psychopathy, for instance, and keep in mind I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but someone with psychopathy may see that as the case, that everybody is out for themselves, so they're all my enemy kind of thing. But generally, people won't think that.
Hey! You dropped your wallets.
You see, they don't trust people to a point of terror. Since crime and criminal acts are committed by the anti...
Oh, I see. He dropped his wallet and he already stole it off this guy. Okay, that's Hung Chi Ming. Oh, you've got a Townsville in California. Okay. All right, so this is sort of really black and white, good guy, bad guy. I don't know why this guy looks like a businessman. I mean, I'm not saying that businessmen can't steal wallets, but I don't know why he would. Like, is he like a businessman that like businessman by day, pickpocket by night? Or he didn't drop the wallet? I'm not 100% sure. Oh, he just sees a wallet on the ground and assumes it's this guy's. Well, part of me thinks that he should have looked at the thing inside and tried to see whose it is rather than just assuming, right? Okay, so he drops it. He doesn't even drop it. He's just like, ugh. Yeah. So they had this thing about colors calming or exciting people kind of thing. I think to a certain degree that can be true. As far as I know, and, you know, keep in mind I'm not a psychologist, but as far as I know, smells elicit far greater emotions than colors do. So I think in the case of people that have been committed to some mental hospital, some mental care center, I think that, you know, maybe making it smell nicer may actually be better. That's just a personal opinion. I could be wrong. But that's my opinion. Yeah, and I like that, Karen. Yeah, absolutely. Don't attribute to malice that which could equally be explained by stupidity. Yeah, that's one thing. And you know, I think along the same lines, don't attribute to malice that which could be explained by just, you know, a lack of consideration. Sometimes people just don't care how they affect others, and that sucks. Yeah, I get it. But you know, sometimes people aren't out to get you. They just haven't considered that their actions may actually make your life hell, basically.
Of terror. Since crime and criminal acts are committed by the antisocial personalities, it's this second type that is the root of most trouble.
I'm feeling personally attacked, to be honest with you. How come this guy's the bald guy? Okay, I feel like they're like all bald men are gonna steal your money, even though they're, you know, that. I don't know anybody. Look, I have no doubt people like out there exist. Like, this would be a case of somebody who is, say, has psychopathy, right? They literally do not feel a sense of empathy for, what was his name? Hung Min, who lost his wallet, right? Hung Min, who lost his wallet. I would certainly go, that ain't mine. I've got my wallet. You know, open it up. Let's see whose it is. Oh, it's Hung Min's. He's got an address here. Let's get hold of him. Let's send it to him. Let's do something. You know, I feel like they're attacking bald people right now. Stop it. Bald people are not the villains.
They tend to go undetected.
Eve, I just had the best interview. I really think I'm gonna get this job. They really like me. That's my new dress.
And?
I haven't even worn it yet.
Wow.
While their actions are calculated.
Okay. Yeah, that is rude. Like, I presume that's her roommate and not, say, her sister. I don't know, though. I don't know these people's relationship, right? Do they borrow clothes all the time? I don't know. Does the person in the suit borrow the other girl's clothes all the time? I don't know. I don't know the situation here, but they're basically saying, hey, some people will take your clothes. And yeah, having healthy boundaries to say, hey, you know, stop taking my clothes. I don't like it. That's fair. That is a fair criticism, yes. But that doesn't mean you should just label them as a suppressive, a antisocial personality, and that everything they do is against you. They want you to fail. It may just be the case that you know, little miss, I'm going to borrow your new dress without your permission, just wasn't considerate of how you would see it. They're, you know, inconsiderate people. It doesn't mean they're actively trying to make you fail. They just don't think enough about the consequences on you of their actions. You know, they're not trying to make you fail. That's the thing. And this is what I have a problem with, because in my opinion, they are framing it as, well, anybody that does anything that causes you stress, that makes your life difficult, they're actively trying to make you fail and are therefore categorized as a suppressive or sort of somebody that needs to be fought against. And that is not necessarily the case. If we go into every conversation assuming that the other person that has done something that causes us stress is trying to make us fail, there's going to be problems there, right? Because if I go into my job and somebody calls up and says, oh, well, my emails aren't coming through correctly, you know, I'm missing some or something like that, and I say, oh, you're a suppressive because you're not considerate of my workload and things like that, that's a problem, because they're not trying to make me fail. Right? They're not being inconsiderate of me. They just really need help and need to get their stuff back on, and it's making my life difficult. It's not the case.
To be destructive.
Calm down, Em.
They appear quite rational.
You always make a big deal out of nothing.
And they can be very convincing.
It's just
okay, so keep this in mind, right? That she's basically, I mean, yeah, having healthy boundaries is a good thing. But people that violate a boundary, for whatever reason, you have to maintain those boundaries, but seeing them as some sort of enemy isn't helpful either, right? I don't know the relationship between these two people. And enforcing boundaries is really healthy as well. So I'm not entirely opposed to the situation they've set up here, right? I personally believe, and my opinion is that, hey, this is a situation where this woman needs to enforce boundaries so that she isn't hurt by somebody taking her stuff. You know, like she wants to wear, and she wants them to ask permission before they take her things. I think that is totally reasonable. That is completely reasonable. However, if she is taking the other's clothes and then doesn't want to reciprocate, that can be a problem. But we've got to stop framing it, or in my opinion, we've got to stop framing it as that person is doing it deliberately to hurt me and make me fail, because that may not be the case. And yeah, if she keeps doing it, and you're allowed to say, hey, it may not be a big deal to you, it is a boundary for me, and that boundary I have to enforce. Please take off my dress, and please ask permission before you borrow any of my clothes. And I will enforce that through however I need to. You may need to, and they're not wrong, you may need to cut that person out of your life. You may need to move. You may need to do all kinds of things in order to enforce your boundaries. Right? Like, I totally get it, yeah. But we can't just assume that she's doing it to make you fail up front, and that if you lay down your boundaries and say, no, I've got to enforce these boundaries, that she won't listen to her and actually implement it. Right? Like, what if you say, no, this is a big boundary for me, it's really important for me, I cannot allow this to happen? She may actually start to listen. So we can't just assume that she's a suppressive person who's out to get ya, in my opinion. You know, we can't just assume that, because she might not be doing that. It may be that that girl's background, and all throughout her life, she grew up with her sisters all borrowing her clothes, and she considers you a sister. You know, she's that close. She thinks you're her sister, and that's normal behavior for her, right? This is something that when you're living with housemates, it's, you know, and if you've lived with housemates, it can be hell. It really can. But it's usually not that housemate trying to blow up your life or sabotage you or make you fail in some way. That's not the case. It usually is just different people have different boundaries, and different people see things differently. Like, that girl may have grown up all her life borrowing her sister's clothes and her friends' clothes, and it's totally normal, and she expects you, if you see something in her wardrobe that you like, you just take it and wear it because she's fine with it. However, that may be a boundary for you. So having that conversation is difficult. And I really understand how women are generally expected just to be agreeable, just to go, okay. I think we've really got to push back on the idea that women cannot speak out about their boundaries, because men generally do. Men generally do. You know, they sort of say, hey, that's not okay. I'm not cool with that, bro. I think that women should be able to do that as well. You know, that's a boundary for me. No. But, you know, that doesn't mean that automatically the person is an antisocial personality, in my opinion, and doesn't make them automatically a bad person. This other girl may just be inconsiderate of that girl's boundaries, because maybe her boundaries are different. And people always assume, and we have a tendency to do this, right? We assume other people's boundaries is the same as ours. And that is not the case. That is not the case. And I have violated others' boundaries before, and without even knowing, without even considering, because I don't have the same boundary. So it's important to set them, maintain them, get them going, and enforce them. But do keep in mind that you cannot make anybody else do anything, right? You can't just say, hey, I've got this boundary, you've got to do this. It just doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. You don't have control over people. You can't make them. But you do have control over what you do. So enforcing that boundary may be difficult. I think it's really important. Oh, hi, Kip. If you did raid me, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know that raiding sometimes is a bit hit and miss, but yeah, I caught some of your stream. I was listening while I was setting up. Really cool stream. Really cool. I really enjoyed it. Really, really cool. Sounds like suppressive person talk. Yeah, and that's the problem. When you start to say, hey, this is inaccurate, or this, to me, this doesn't seem to be correct because of these reasons, and try and have a discussion, in my opinion, you're just labeled a suppressive person and you're really discounted. If you sort of say, hey, there's problems with this way of thinking, they're just like, well, suppressive person, they don't matter. In my opinion, and I have experienced the same thing. I was once talking to a member of... so with Scientology, they have this thing called Dianetics, which is their sort of this, in my opinion, this pseudo-scientific psychology, pseudo-psychology system that they've got set up to evaluate how people think. And in my opinion, it is not a good system. It can be incredibly harmful to people. This sort of black and white thinking, in my opinion, is not very good. But Dianetics, I was talking to someone from their Dianetics thing, and they would not admit it was associated with Scientology. They try to keep the two apart because, once you're talking about Dianetics, this sort of, in what is, in my opinion, a pseudo-psychological scam, basically, in my opinion, they sort of get people into this self-help idea, and then the Scientology, the Xenu, the aliens, the Thetans, the magical sort of, well, in my opinion, what is magical and sort of science fiction stuff, that's all in the Scientology branch, which comes later when you're drawn in by this sort of self-help stuff, which, I have the opinion that it's complete nonsense. It is really, really limited. And this is just one example I would give for why it is. It's because somebody that does an antisocial behavior does not mean they're antisocial in every aspect of their life, right? Like, I think that I can reliably say that's a fact.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Have a good time. It looks really pretty on you.
I know, right? Thanks.
Yeah, so this is just a failure to enforce your boundaries. I think that you can, I think that maybe, like her blowing up and going, oh, you're such a B word. No, that's terrible, right? Like, absolutely. But she can say, hey, that really does violate one of my boundaries, and I do not, I think that you should ask, I will have to enforce that you ask for permission before taking any of my stuff, and especially any of my clothes. I totally understand. I would say, oh, fair enough. I don't really have a problem with people borrowing my clothes, right? Clothes to me aren't, some people have much more of a vested interest in what they wear. I'm not a huge, fashion person. Okay, I really am, fashionably challenged, I will say that. I totally admit it, right? Like, I'm fashionably challenged, don't really care what I wear. I don't feel invested in any kind of, fashion statement or anything. I just don't care. Like, my wife takes my clothes all the time. I just don't care. Other people, I know that they really care, though. They really do. But what I want to know with this situation is the blonde woman taking the other girl's clothes and wearing them. Because if that's the case, then that would be a really terrible thing to do, right? Right? I mean, if she's the one that's taking her clothes as well and then goes, oh, but I'm not happy with you taking mine, that would be incredibly hypocritical and probably a really shitty thing to do, in my opinion. Right? Like saying, oh, well, I can take yours, but you can't take mine. That'd be terrible. But, you know, we're obviously framing it as, well, they just take. And keep that in mind, right? This, you shouldn't just let people take things of yours. Keep that in mind, this non-sharing ideal. Keep that in mind. Look, I really don't care. You know, I might have a problem with you taking my underwear, right? I might have a problem with that, okay? Just saying. That might be a little weird. Just saying. I know they're washed and everything, like, but I might, you know, I might be a bit, yeah, that makes me uncomfortable. So...
Their basic intent is to keep others down. So
yeah, I don't think that's the case. Like I said, you know, in my opinion, it could just be that that girl was raised in that household where their sisters took clothes all the time and they think it's normal. Like, it might not be, oh, I'm trying to actively sabotage this person. That might not be the case. They may just have a different idea of where boundaries are. And like I said, we always assume that other people's boundaries are the same as ours. And they're not. That's why we have to speak up about them, because that person you're talking to, their boundary may be completely different. And they may think, oh, you know, borrowing somebody Elizabeth's clothes is totally normal. And, you know, if you're raised in a household where, you know, your clothes were really sort of, you know, an expression of who you are and they never borrowed them, then that might be a boundary for you. But you can't just assume people know where your boundaries are. It's why telling people is really important.
they compulsively and cleverly do just that.
Did you hear? They say there's going to be layoffs, budget cuts. Any of you teachers who aren't cutting it. Has anybody seen the sugar?
Okay, so this is a lot to unpack here. Are they trying to sabotage the others? Because if they're making it up, right, if they're saying, oh, there's going to be layoffs and that isn't true, right, then that's a problem. Right, that's definitely a problem. But if there are going to be layoffs and this person has some insider information and is telling people, like, she just told, what, 4 people? And those 4 people, they could possibly save their job with that information, right? They start to, oh, there's going to be layoffs, I better work hard, right? Like, she may have done them a favor. She might have actually, or she may be trying to help them. Like, that's the thing. You don't really know their motivation. Now, if she's lying about the layoffs, yeah, that's a bit of a prick, to be honest with you. That's a shitty thing to do. But if there is actually layoffs, she might not be trying to sabotage you. She might be trying to help you. And that's where sort of something in psychology, and keep in mind I'm not a psychologist, but so there is something called mind reading. Now, mind reading is, it's not, of course it's not literal mind reading, but it's basically a sort of ascribing to somebody what they are thinking, right? Like, oh, that person said that, they're trying to do this. They have the intent of doing this. And one thing that I have learnt in my life is that oftentimes, I mean, not always, but oftentimes I believe somebody has an intentionality of one thing and it's turned out not to be true. It might seem like they're intending to do something, but that's not what they're intending to do. It's just they're trying to do something else and they fuck up, or they don't do a good job of it, or they do something that, you know, it doesn't reach their intent. I don't think it's a good idea to start sort of saying, hey, they're intentionally doing this. Sure, if the evidence warrants it, yeah, maybe they are. But we can't know what people are intending.
Artists in particular are magnets for these people, who view their art as something to be destroyed. So as a friend, they try to do just that.
I'm awfully sorry, I didn't mean to get your hopes up. Let me be honest with you. Everybody in town thinks that you're, well, just not good.
Where dreams mysteriously...
Oh, so that it wasn't that the light bulb blew. They're just using lighting to, you know, sort of say that he's sad. Yeah, okay. I don't know. Like, I don't think that there's people running around actively trying to destroy people. So obviously the guy who stole the money from the wallet works as an art curator or an art reviewer or something. He runs a museum or something. I don't know. It's very strange.
Shattered. Look for the antisocial personality hidden in their midst.
Why the failing grade on your test? It's as if you didn't even try.
Why should I? What's the point?
Even though they make
Yeah, I really think that if a counselor says you have some aptitude for science, but you know there's a lot of study to this kind of thing, have you thought about community college? If he doesn't try to study and she, you know, this satisfied look of, oh, I've destroyed that boy, he's not going to study anymore, I'm glad, even though I'm the school counselor. I really think this is a straw man of a school counselor. I don't think they're actively trying to get kids to not succeed, like to make them fail kind of thing. I get you. There may be some bad advice that a school counselor gives, but I don't think they're intentionally trying to make the kids, like, not study. Oh, I'm glad the kid's not studying now. What are we talking about here? This is very strange. This is very strange to me. Very, very weird. Noise, that is, yeah. So most of this is don't be a dick. Like, most of this sort of self-help thing is people doing dickish things are bad. I don't think that's the case, though. Like, that counselor, you know, in a certain way, they might not have been trying to make the person fail. They might have been trying to help. You know, I really think this is a grotesque, in my opinion, a grotesque parody of what getting bad news or having people criticize you is actually them trying to do. I think it's pretty bad.
up only about 20% of the population. The havoc they can wreak can be devastating.
Citation needed? Suppressives are 20% of the population. A citation needed? Citation needed, please. What statistical study did that come from? Where'd that come from? Look, this person opening the door, yeah, that's a really crappy thing to do. I got you. But I don't think that most people open their doors deliberately trying to scratch the car next to them. Yeah, I don't...
It would save us all.
Yeah, I don't think people are doing that. That they, you know, that is pretty horrific to do, I get you. But I don't think most people are doing that. Like, it's just most scratches on the side of a car caused by a door is accidental, you know. I mean, come on.
A lot of failure and heartbreak if we could detect who these people are. Fortunately,
but do you see how it's being framed, right? You've got one person who is trying to ruin these people's lives, right? Like, they're not just maybe an inconsiderate person or a bad guidance counselor, you know, they're not that. They are people actively trying to destroy the people around them. And in my opinion, that is a very, very, that's a terrible way to frame this kind of thing. I will grant you that is bad behavior, but you to read into, well, they're a suppressive person that's trying to destroy you is not helpful. It's not a good idea to do. Like, that might not be true. I really think that this is well, if this person's trying to destroy you, in my opinion, how do you get help? Well, it's Scientology, isn't it? We're setting up villains in order for us to see the heroes. And the heroes is the Scientologists. They're the ones that are going to save you from these villains that are swarming around you, right? And that's just an opinion, but that's what I think they're doing.
Scientology, it was discovered that these people can be detected simply by examining their conduct. You see, there are actually distinct characteristics that all antisocial personalities have in common. And these same characteristics, reversed, will be found in a social personality. Compare...
Yeah, I don't think this is accurate. Like I said, behaviors are social or antisocial. And depending on context, some antisocial behaviors in the larger culture or the larger society can be social within smaller subcultures. Calling people the C word. In larger society, that may be really rude. In a bunch of your friends in Australia, that might be a really social thing to do, right? We don't have... This is so black and white, in my opinion. It's not good framing. Its behaviors are social or antisocial. The person isn't, and don't get me wrong, there's definitely some very fucked up people out there. I totally grant you that. There are psychopaths, there are sociopaths, there's people that have no sense of empathy whatsoever. But I don't know what population percentage are sociopaths and psychopaths, but I don't think it's high. Percentage of population are psychopaths or sociopaths. Now, this is just AI, so do take this with a grain of salt, as per usual. And actually, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Definitely fact-check what I do say, and, to be aware that it is just my opinion. Don't sue me, Scientology. Approximately 1% of the population are psychopaths, but it can range from 1 to 4.5, depending on diagnostic criteria. So very, very, very tiny percentage. So anywhere between 1... DSM, antisocial personality disorder, affects roughly 1% to 3%. 1% to 3%. So 20%? No. And don't get me wrong, psychopathy, sociopathy, and narcissism are the main ones under antisocial personality disorder. And antisocial personality disorder is kind of what they're talking about here. People with absolutely no sense of empathy for those people around them, and they generally tend to crush people every single day, every single way, but they're not a huge percentage. They're not 20% of the population. In my opinion, this is just fear-mongering. This is just, they're all out there, they're all around you all the time. No, it's actually quite rare for someone to have antisocial personality disorder.
One list against the other, and you'll know which type you're dealing with. For example, an antisocial personality has a bad sense of property and thinks that nothing is really owned.
It's just clothes.
But a social personality...
Yeah, nothing is really owned. I would disagree with that, personally. I would say that even somebody with antisocial personality disorder, they do have a sense of property when it's their property, right? Like somebody who is a narcissist, they have antisocial personality disorder, but they can get very ownership heavy of their own things. It's just that usually they do not have a sense of empathy to moderate when they want something, that they shouldn't just take it, kind of thing. And I get what you're saying, but this isn't the same for all people with antisocial personality disorder, right? It's a very wide-ranging. And keep in mind, I'm not a psychologist, but I know it is more complex than that. It's way more complex than that.
Knows that property belongs to someone, and its theft or misuse is frowned upon. Here's another example. A social person is eager to relay good news and tends to be specific about who said what and what exactly they said.
So, great news. The voice called you a genius. Great work. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Whereas the antisocial personality does the complete opposite with communication.
No, she's not. What is this regarding?
They will not pass on good news.
A job. Yeah, I think she mentioned something about an interview. I'll let her know you called. Finally, I'm starving. I'm sorry it was so...
Good news is stopped.
Did I get any calls?
No.
Yeah, so this is just being a dick. This is just being a dick. So I dislike the framing of this, right? Because, in my opinion, it could lead to somebody doing something that's inconsiderate and you labeling them as a suppressive, as a person out to get you, right? So if your flatmate doesn't pass along a message, right? I get you. Maybe there are people out there, narcissists, who don't want to see you succeed because it gives them some insecurity. But odds on your flatmate just didn't pass along a message, right? This is dangerous in my opinion because it labels everybody as doing anything that harms you as them intentionally going out of their way to harm you, right? Like, that is not the case. Sometimes people do things that are inconsiderate because they just haven't considered your boundaries or your feelings in the matter, and they don't know how you feel. So instead of sort of going, you did this on purpose, you're a suppressive person, you're out to get me, in my opinion, it's much better to sort of go, well, we need to fix this because that's a boundary of mine. When you do get a message, it needs to be passed along because I pass along yours. Maybe a message board, maybe something else. Maybe you need a new frigging flatmate if they're doing that crap to you. I get you. But, just labeling them intentionally, doing this intentionally is not useful. It's just not useful. And I might add that I have heard on good authority, and I have heard sort of in my opinion, that Scientology then cuts these suppressive people out of your life. They will try to get rid of them. They will try to eliminate them from your life. So that's a problem because they're not necessarily bad for your life. They just have behaviors that violate your boundaries.
And they speak in generalities, using expressions such as "they say" and "everyone thinks."
Did you remember the hot sauce?
No, I forgot.
Well, everybody knows you do that.
While
Wow, she's just like sort of, so she's just described Fox News when they say or everybody does this. Fox News does that all the time. I remember seeing an analysis on Fox News, and the amount that basically Fox News says, they say, people have said, some are saying, this kind of language. And I do agree with this, right? Like, I do agree with this, that sort of everybody says this, everybody says that, is sometimes misleading, right? It's basically a way to give an opinion without giving an opinion. Everybody says this. Well, everybody is wrong then. I don't know. It's very strange. But like, this isn't like, if you have a flatmate that says, "Oh, did you get the hot sauce?" No, well, no, you didn't tell me to get hot sauce. Everybody knows you have hot sauce. We never get it in my family. You know what I mean? You're allowed to push back and challenge that narrative. Just because they say, well, everybody knows that, they're really talking from their experience. And that person may not be a suppressive trying to put you down. They may just have a different background. Like in their family, they borrow clothes all the time, right? It's important to set that boundary and say, look, we usually don't get hot sauce. So if you need to get it, you're going to have to tell me, right? Like, that's going to be a boundary. And that's okay. You can set those boundaries and maintain them. And that's healthy. Just assuming someone's out to get you because they always get hot sauce and you don't, that's not a healthy way to conduct yourself. And be aware, especially with flatmates, right? I'll tell you this, from my experience of living with flatmates, they do some weird ass stuff. They do some weird ass crap, right? That is totally normal from when they grew up and seems really weird from my point of view. And that's okay, right? You're going to have to just accept that's what they do. If it doesn't violate a boundary. If it does, you're going to have to bring it up and work through it because you're living together, right? Look, I'll give you one example that is it's not as bad, but it is an example. The way that my wife and I put knives and forks in the different sections of you have those things you put in a drawer, so you've got sections for the knives and forks and things like that. They're just compartments, right? I always, throughout my entire life, have gone knife, fork, spoon, right? That's the norm when I grew up in it. To me, it was just the way it was done. You know, when you're putting them away in the drawer. And my wife always does it in a different order. I think it's forks, knives, spoons or something. And like, it was so weird to me. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. But that's how her family, that was the order her family did it in. And it was really interesting. I mean, it's not as bad, you know, it's not like this, oh, I can't do this. It was, you know, no big deal at all. But it was interesting that it just felt wrong to do it in any other order. And I found it very interesting how my mind was conditioned to put these away, that when I went to do it differently, my brain just went, that is so wrong. Is it? Is there any set way? Like, it's not set in stone, right? Like, there is no official, you know, rule book on which section knives, forks, and spoons go into. But because I had done it in that order all my life, then I went, well, it's wrong to do it any other way. No, it's not. It's just different. And that's an example of what I'm talking about. My wife isn't trying to make me fail and cause me stress by putting them in a different order. That's just how she was raised. And that's why I have this opinion that labeling people that cause you stress a suppressive and a, you know, antisocial personality is not helpful and not useful.
Social personality tends to reassure those around him.
You're one of my top students. I know you can do this.
The antisocial person deals mainly...
Yeah, well, that may be true, but it may also not be true. I mean, is that guy just lying? Because before in that chemistry class, is he still got chemistry on the board or has it changed? I didn't see that. No, it's still chemistry. You know, he said, what do you think about this? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And did not seem to be engaging whatsoever. So is that one of his best students? I don't know. Is he just lying to him because he doesn't want to have a conversation about how he doesn't engage in class? I don't know. Oh, time traveler raid. Welcome, time travelers. We've stepped back into the great days of, wait, when was this? 2013, I think, with a Scientology video. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe he is a really good student. Maybe he is. Right. But, you know, that doesn't mean that the counselor is wrong. It doesn't mean that the counselor... Well, it doesn't... The counselor may be wrong. It doesn't automatically necessarily mean that the school counselor is trying to destroy this kid's future. Right? That is the mind reading, in my opinion. That is the idea of saying, well, I know what they're thinking. Because you don't. You don't know what her intention was, and that's the problem. You can't just label somebody that does something detrimental, or you perceive as detrimental, as being a suppressive person trying to make you fail. That's a problem.
Top students. I know you can do this.
The antisocial person deals mainly in bad news.
Did you hear? They say there's going to be layoffs.
And critical or hostile.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, if no layoffs are coming, like I said earlier, if no layoffs are coming, that's a really dickish thing to do. I totally understand. Yes, that's being a dick. I'll pay that. But if there is layoffs, what she may be intending to do is help those people. Like, hey, there's layoffs, apparently. I've heard there's layoffs. You know, we need to really improve performance, like, so you don't get laid off. So I'm helping you out. I'm trying to help. So I think this whole idea of trying to attribute to people their intention, even if it is detrimental to you, is not a good idea. I think this is a case of, in my opinion, don't sue me, in my opinion, this is them just labeling all the stressful things in your life as a result of this suppressive, antisocial personality, and they're going to give you the answer, and that is to cut these people out of your life, join the church, and do their courses.
disrespectful remarks.
You always make a big deal out of nothing.
Furthermore, the antisocial personality will alter communication to make it worse.
Sure. What do you think of him?
He's got some growing to do, but he shows a lot of promise.
Let me be honest with you. Everybody in town thinks that you're just, well, not good.
As a result,
Yeah, so this is just being a dick. And like if you're I presume this is an art curator or somebody running an art department. Like I get that there's a lot of snobbery and stuff, but he you know, I don't know his motivation for trying to cut this kid down. Like if people think he shows a lot of promise, I don't know. I don't know why you'd convey that accurately. It seems like a parody of what people are actually like. Look, I've got no doubt there's people out there like that, but 20% of the population seems wrong. Does not seem accurate at all. And I think that I think that people do these behaviors, but that doesn't make them all around just antisocial, right? Look, I'll quote Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think anyone is 100% a dick. You know, I don't know if you know that movie. Look, okay, Nick, I know you're a vexatious litigant, okay? I know you are. You're a very vexatious litigant. But I'm more scared about Scientology than I am about you. Sorry. Sorry, mate. Sorry.
those associated with an antisocial personality tend to be unhappy and behave in a crippled manner in life. And they get sick more often than others.
Yeah, so this is, you know, I've got no doubt, like no doubt that large amounts of stress can cause you to have a physical reaction. I've no doubt at all. I get you. But I'm more challenging the idea that somebody who does something that causes you stress is this antisocial personality and a suppressive. Because as far as I'm aware, and I have heard from pretty reliable sources, ex-Scientologists, that the people they label as suppressive, they do encourage them to be removed from the Scientologist life, which can be a problem. This smells very ableist, especially since most of the issues they have are autism spectrum traits. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Bragwin. I see what you're saying. I don't necessarily think that giving sort of bad news all the time, or I get what you mean, that autistic people can, and being on the spectrum myself, I know that people have perceived my actions to be harmful to them, but I have no idea that what I am doing is causing them stress or problems or any kind of issues at all, right? Like, because I have a hard time reading the social cues of people that I am interacting with, sometimes I have a hard time knowing when I am doing something that causes them irritation or stress or something like that, especially when I'm tired. I'm usually pretty good at getting the cues, but I don't do it intuitively. I have to do it cognitively. I have to pick up on things by really analyzing tone, and that's something I've learned over my life. So if I get tired and exhausted, I generally will almost lose that ability altogether. I really can't focus enough to keep an eye on why people are doing the things they're doing or what cues they're presenting. Yeah, I you know, but sort of, I know, like, I know, for one example, I was once talking to somebody in a conversation about, I think it was about fate or miracles or something like that. And I didn't realize I was in a furious argument while it was happening. That I was just sort of saying all of this stuff and they were getting absolutely outraged and I didn't realize it. I completely missed it. That I was annoying the crap out of them and they were absolutely pissed off with me. And I had no idea. But yeah, I think some of them, yeah, definitely. Some of them, absolutely. You know, oh, is this person blunt with you and giving you bad news? They've got to be a suppressive. In my opinion, no, they could just be autistic and bluntly telling you something, you know, with seemingly no care for your feelings or your consideration, but they're just autistic and blurt out stuff that's completely honest without sort of padding it at all. They're not trying to hurt you. They're not trying to make you fail. And I get what you're saying, Bragman. I do get what you're saying. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, but Titan's completely look. Titan obviously is a completely suppressive, antisocial person. Like, let's face it, he delights, I say, in you know, making people fail. I'm joking. Don't sue me, Titan. Okay, so that's actually a legal term, which is fantastic. It's even better that it's an actual legal term, Noise. The Church of Scientology has been labeled, you know, this is a label that the courts have given them as a vexatious litigant. It's just that I have to be careful because we don't have that label in Australia. Vexatious lawsuits are done on a case-by-case basis over here. But, you know, when you get labeled in America a vexatious litigant, it as far as I understand, and I could be wrong, but it restricts your ability to bring lawsuits. You have to show a lot of cause, you know, without them just being dismissed. It's a very bad position to be in. But, in my opinion, they deserve it for all of the lawsuits they bring. And I might add that L. Ron Hubbard, and this is factual, L. Ron Hubbard had a attack the attacker sort of doctrine. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but a policy of attack the attacker. If someone criticizes you, you attack them with everything you've got. And I think that, in my opinion, that has what's caused them to get this vexatious litigant label in America.
On the other hand, a social personality's friends and associates tend to be well, happy, and of good morale. It's easy to see how important it is to be able to spot who these suppressive people are. Once you know who's behind your unexplained failures and misfortunes, you'll be able to change your life for the better with solutions that make those ups and downs a thing of the past.
Yeah, I think the ups and downs of life are never going to be a thing of the past. Better than Ember. Thank you, Ember. 31 months? Dang. Look, as far as I know, the first content went out 4 years ago. My first debate that I uploaded to YouTube, right? The birth of the Mark Reed Atheism channel went out 4 years ago. So, thank you all so much. It's an honor. It's a privilege, quite frankly. I don't know. I was thinking about a 5-year celebration now that I'm coming up on 5 years. I think it's going to be in July, which is crazy. I don't, you know, has it caused me a lot of stress from antisocial personalities? Absolutely. But, you know, it definitely has been worth it. It seems to have flown by. But anyway, better than Ember. 31 months. Dang. Since Nick's here, tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. 6 p.m. She hasn't said for what, but I'll check Nick's channel, because Nick was kind enough to raid me, and I always love the time travelers being here. Always love it. You guys are awesome. And Slava Ukraine. I don't know if I said that right. I'm not good with thingo. So that is... Oh, is there a trans genocide? Okay. Okay. Yeah, Well, I mean, damn, they've tried to eliminate trans people before in the past and it hasn't worked. I don't think they're going to succeed. But is there a trans genocide? I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question. Look, it is 6 a.m. I can't guarantee I'll be up for that, but if I am, absolutely, I'll be there. If I am up. Damn, why did that be 6 a.m.? Damn you, Nick. Damn you, Nick. Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, all of the people with mod permissions, feel free to shill whatever you think people will like. That's why you have mod permissions. I know you're just not going to drop stuff willy-nilly into the chat. Please don't judge me for using the phrase willy-nilly. Yeah, go for it. Absolutely. No, I'm always fine with that. The only rule I have is don't promote shows that you are currently about to start on my chat, and I think it's inappropriate, but that's okay. It's all good. When a PTS person is transgender, they make little or no games in Scientology. PTS? I don't know what a PTS is. I'm not sure what that is. When a PTS person, positive social, positive trait, something? I don't know what that is. What's PTS? No idea.
With these tools, you can choose your friends and associates wisely and build a better life for yourself and those around you. Once relieved of the burden of suppression, anyone can lift their head, become well and happy with life again.
Yeah, however, the burden of suppression, that may include people that are beneficial to your life, but they cause you stress. Like, for instance, somebody has parents that are very beneficial to their life, but they cause them stress, or they do things that may be inconsiderate. Potential trouble source. Potential trouble source person. Okay, so when a potential trouble source person... So what's the difference between a potential trouble source person and a suppressive person? What's the difference between that? I don't understand that. Maybe I'm not understanding something. Suppressive. Is a suppressive somebody who's, too far gone? A potential trouble source is a Scientologist who is connected to a suppressive person and being negatively affected or held back by them. Yeah, so I don't see this as helpful. I think that people are a lot more complicated than that, in my opinion. I think that people can be beneficial and still violate your boundaries if you do not establish those boundaries and really enforce them. But I think that some people can be of great help to you as long as you make the boundaries clear. Because what we saw in every single example of that, in my opinion, is the person not letting the other person know that they have a boundary and not enforcing that boundary. Yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is. I just didn't know what a PTS is. So a potential trouble source is somebody that, say, joined Scientology or a part of the Church of Scientology, but they are still connected with these suppressive people, right? So a person that has joined Scientology and is working through the church, but still has sort of contact and interactions with, say, their mother, who has been labeled a suppressive person, that will be a PTS in the church, a potential trouble source, right? Am I understanding that correctly? If I'm not, let me know, but that's what I am getting from the sort of description that I've got here. So there's two ways to handle it: handling and disconnection. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I think there are situations where still connected to reality is connected or influenced by the suppressive person. Yes. Now the problem comes that vocal critics of the church, this is in my opinion, vocal critics of the church are labeled suppressive people. So what my worry would be is that if somebody is critical of the church and they can't be handled, or their mind can't be changed, they're still expressing reservations, then they're supposed to be disconnected. And that removes any kind of criticism of the church from their life, regardless of what it's doing. And that can be dangerous because even atheism, I wouldn't, I think that people have criticisms of the atheist movement. I wouldn't just remove them from my life because they had criticisms. I don't think that's particularly helpful.
I'd like to introduce you all to the hottest new artist in town.
Armed with this knowledge, there's no limit to how much we can all flourish.
So that's the cause of suppression. That went a lot faster than I expected, people. I do apologize. I might, do you want me to do another one? I did grab another one, which was Solutions for a Dangerous Environment, Tools for Life. I did grab that. PTS is going to make trouble. I don't think that's necessarily the case. in my opinion. I think that you can have, critics in your life that you disagree with that, are entitled to their opinion, entitled to their criticism, and you disagree. I have friends that I disagree with. I have people that I know that are religious that do not agree with my activism for atheism. And that's okay. They're entitled to their opinion. I disagree with them. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they're trying to make me fail. It doesn't mean that they're out to get me. It just means they disagree. And that's okay. I dislike this idea of, well, if somebody disagrees and criticizes what I'm doing, then I've got to either get them on my side or eliminate them from my life. And in my opinion, that's what it sounds like Scientology is doing. You know what? I'm feeling great today. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to get this one up and do another one. So hold on one sec. And because I feel good today, and I hope you feel well too, because I feel great. And, you may disagree with me on my opinions of Scientology and stuff. That's fine. I enjoy analyzing things logically, rationally, with, sort of empirical methods. That's what I enjoy. So that makes me happy. I don't expect you to agree with me. That's fine. All good. Okay. So just as a bonus, I got hit with a raid a couple of times. I think that warrants a bonus section. This one isn't that long. So this one is, what did I say? Solutions for a Dangerous Environment. And this is part of their series, Scientology Tools for Life. Dangerous Environment. I swear I've heard this music on a corporate video. Like one of those corporate training videos. I swear to God I've heard this music on a corporate, welcome to the company. Here's what we do. I swear I've heard it before. And it's really interesting. It does seem like, from flicking through these, it's very corporate orientated. It seems like this is the kind of, I guess, it's very hard for me to evaluate whether it is corporate or not. Obviously, I'm not a Scientologist, but it seems from the outside, in my opinion, to be a very sort of corporate, like climb that ladder kind of feeling to it, I guess. I don't know if that's true being in it, but that's what it seems like.
It's easy to feel anxious about the state of the world.
Sure it is. Yeah. And I think that sort of mass media has made us very aware of what's happening in the world.
Just turn on the TV or read the paper.
It does business consulting too. Yeah, I'm not entirely. So I'm in two minds about corporate culture and sort of the corporate way of doing things. I think that it can be good for business. It can be bad for business. I think that sort of putting on corporate culture is not sometimes very helpful, in my opinion.
Storm in decades.
All we see is chaos. Earthquake.
Well, that isn't true. All we see is chaos. I mean, it's kind of weird that they had this thing in the last one about vague statements, right? Suppressive people make vague statements with never specifics, like everybody says, or they all say this, or all of it is this. Vague statements, right? That's what they said in the last one. In my opinion, this should fall under that suppressive person statement. All we see. That's not all we see. Maybe they mean all we see on TV. Is that the case? Sometimes, yeah, it depends on what you watch. If you're watching, cat videos on YouTube, I'm not sure that you're seeing all of that, but I presume they're talking about, mainstream media. But there's a reason why they give bad news all the time. And it's not because they're out to get you.
Floods, wars, riots, crime. Events we can't control that make us feel helpless. We're left feeling unsafe, even in our own homes. The world, it seems, is not only dangerous, but getting more and more so every day.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't agree with that. It's getting more dangerous every day. Actually, sort of crime rates and things are actually going down, right? Like they're actually reducing. It's just that as we get more and more ability to record the world around us, they're showing a lot more of it. Less of these events are actually happening if you compare it, over the last 100 years or so. It's just that our ability to record and give reports of it have gone up. But generally the world is actually getting better and better. If you look at the metrics, like objective or empirical rather, evaluation, in my opinion, this world is the best that it's ever been if you look over the last hundreds of years. Okay, maybe it was better before certain things broke out in, the Middle East and certain things are happening that are really worrying, but, I don't think that the world is far, far worse off. I don't think so. I don't know why she would do. I guess, I don't disagree with this message. Just see this bloke come up. I'm not sure you would go, oh, he's gonna grab my purse and rob me. My girl, my sister in Christ, you are on a bus with tons of people round. Why assume that this guy is gonna rob you in some way? I don't understand.
But there's something important to know about all this.
Excuse me. I think you dropped this.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, he's a nice bloke. Look, I don't disagree with this message. You shouldn't look at people like they're going to always rob you or take you out or whatever. Yeah, I get that it can be scary out there, but not everyone's there to rob you. I don't disagree with this message. It's just I don't know anybody that acts like that. And quite frankly, just as an aside, okay, move over and give the man a seat. What are you doing? You're blocking, you're taking up the seats, lady. Come on. The dude wants to sit down. You've got a spare seat beside you. Maybe just don't be a dick. Like, this is basically don't be a dick. Don't think that just because somebody looks a certain way that they're out to get you. It is the case that there are certain things we should do to keep us safe in a world that may be unsafe. You know, like when you're going out and, you know, go with a girlfriend, you know, don't be alone in alleys kind of thing. It's just sort of common sense kind of stuff. I get you. But don't look at everybody like they're out to get you. Which sort of contradicts, in my opinion, with the first video, which sort of says 20% of the population are suppressive people and they want to make you fail. You know, like, it's sort of contradictory.
The environment is actually not as dangerous as it can sometimes appear to be. The cold hard fact is that there are certain people whose purpose it is to make the environment seem as threatening and dangerous as possible.
It isn't a crime rate, it's a crime epidemic.
They make their living by creating chaos and upset.
Women and children are no longer safe to walk in the street.
Their incomes and power rise in direct ratio to the amount of threat they can inject into the surroundings.
So I don't disagree with this. I don't disagree with this 100%. I think that definitely some politicians, in my opinion, make things seem like a bigger threat. They use danger to make people scared so they will vote for them. You know, I can point to the caravans of migrants that that Trump said were coming over the border in order to get people elected. In my opinion, that's what he did. You know, and the caravan never materialized. It was just there were immigrants, you know, and this whole, you know, oh, the trans agenda, you know, they're making people afraid in order to get power. I get that. I think, personally, in my opinion, that the media is in a different category. I think that the media isn't so much doing it in order to, you know, get power or get elected or, you know, have people in a certain way. I think that the problem is partly, and don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming people for this, but people will click on these events. They will see, oh, there's a war going on here. I'm going to click on that. And so I think that the media has learnt, and its business model is to get the most eyeballs on their news or on their current events or on whatever they're giving you, so that they make avid revenue. And they're not sort of doing it to cause chaos specifically or do that specifically. It's just more people will look at bad news, bad news than we'll look at good news. I think partly it's the consumer of this news will go towards the bad things, the wars and stuff, and not good things. And so they've learnt to sensationalize. You know, every new disease we discover is the next big pandemic, you know, and they blow it out of proportion because that's what gets people looking at it. And that's what they need to do to make a profit. And unfortunately, we're in a system where those companies need to make a profit in order to remain in business. And so I don't think they set out to try and do this, but it is a consequence of what we want to consume, what we want to get eyeballs on and see.
If I am elected, I will do something about the crime.
For example, we are constantly barraged with bad news in the media.
Authorities say that...
Yeah, I don't think that's on purpose. I think it's because people are drawn to bad news. People seeing new virus discovered probably isn't going to be a big deal. Not many people, no, much more people will click on new disease discovered. Could this be the next pandemic that destroys the world? People will click on that. So I'm not blaming consumers, but I think that it isn't a overarching agenda to make people scared or whatever. I think it's just a response to what people want to see, what people will click on and will be drawn to. I don't have a solution for that. I don't think you can change people's attraction to drama, the most dramatic headlines, the most significant and life-changing news. I don't think you can change that.
They are heightening global security measures at all points of entry.
They not only report the most threatening bits of news.
This is causing hours of delay at all major airports and ground transportation.
Celebrity pets stolen. Is this a dig at Australia? I think this is a dig at Australia. So, okay, so background. We had this idiot of a foreign minister. So was he a foreign minister? I can't even remember what his job was. But basically, Johnny Depp brought his dogs into Australia. And because of Australia's ecosystem, it has really, really strong bio security laws, right? Incredibly strong, because we get one thing over here and it will destroy the entire ecosystem because Australia has been so isolated. And Johnny Depp brought his dogs in without getting like quarantine or anything like that, just brought them in. And they basically confiscated his dogs because they weren't cleared for quarantine. Against the law, right? But like an absolute moron, this guy we had, Barnaby Joyce, he's a moron, he's an idiot, he's an absolute tool. He's like, oh, you've got to come and get them or we're going to destroy your dogs, kind of thing. Just being a dick. And then he made Johnny Depp and I think it was Amber Heard at that point, do an apology video. And it's all just grandstanding. But, you know, he was an idiot. So not a lot of people agree with that. Look, more people hated that man in Australia than Johnny Depp's dogs, okay? Or even Amber Heard. I think we liked Amber Heard and Johnny Depp more than Barnaby Joyce, quite frankly. So yeah. No, it didn't. No. It has been recognised as a religion in Australia. I know that a lot of countries have banned it, though, especially European countries. Personally, I agree that it is not. My opinion is that it meets too many of the criteria of being a cult. I go by the Bite model by Stephen Hassan, I think it was, did that model. And I think that it ticks too many boxes and should be designated as such. That's my opinion. That is not a legal opinion. It is just my personal opinion.
But also sensationalize it, making it worse than it is.
Thousands of people could die due to a mysterious virus currently found only in mice.
So this was 2013, right? Did they know? A Scientologist behind it? No, I'm joking. Don't sue me, okay? I'm joking. Yes, I 100% am joking. But yeah, there was a virus that broke out. And it did kill a lot of people. I know because I lived through it. And I know what effect it had because my sister-in-law worked in an emergency department. And it was bad. It was real bad. They were, to put it bluntly, stacking bodies. Some cases, like New York, they were literally stacking bodies. It was bad, right? So, yes, they tend to sensationalize, but sometimes things do happen, and it is good to be informed about it. It's good to be informed. The trick is not to look at the world through the lens of what you see the news say.
Only in mice. The mouse flu is currently spreading faster than...
You see a frightening headline.
Daddy, who's gonna die?
I don't know, sweetie.
You want to know why and who. So you tune into that news story or buy that newspaper.
This is what Senator Gravitt had to say.
Yeah, and partly that is because people will click on that stuff. That is partly consumer. Like, I'm not blaming people. I'm not holding them accountable or anything like that. But that people will be drawn towards that. It seems to be human nature, and I don't know any way to change human nature. Perhaps we could not have a system where the news needs ad revenue in order to survive as news. I don't know how you would implement that. I don't, maybe an independent outlet to keep them all honest. I'm not sure, but it seems like a problem between people's attraction to sensational stuff or significance of news and the media's necessity to get ad revenue. Just saying.
I tell you, if I am elected, I will make it mandatory that everybody is vaccinated.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's actually what sort of saved millions of lives in the last crisis. Now, I understand this was before that happened, right? This was before that happened. So they didn't know what was coming, obviously. But in my opinion, that was really good that we got those vaccinations out because people were dying. So I think in the US, I think 1 million people died from COVID in the US. I can't remember the exact amount, but I think worldwide, a large, like it was 5 million people or something. COVID US. In Australia, it wasn't too bad, but we did some really strenuous isolation and 1.2 million deaths. Yeah, 1.2, the most of any country, and 17th highest per capita worldwide. The COVID-19 pandemic ranks as the deadliest disaster in the country's history. So think about that. It's the deadliest disaster in the history of the country.
For the rest of us, these people make their living off of fear and confusion.
I'd like to make a donation to the campaign fund.
They are...
Well, it's indirect. It's not that direct. They don't make their money. They make their money off ad revenue, which ad revenue comes from more people looking at it, right? Like if more people looked at funny cat stories, they'd be showing funny cat stories. But people, they're busy. They don't have time. They don't want to see a funny cat. I don't know why. I personally love cats and dogs being just ridiculously stupid. I love them. But, people will click on, crisis in Middle East rather than cat chases tail and falls over.
Sellers of conflict, merchants of chaos. But it isn't just the politicians and...
Well, they're not creating the chaos. That's the thing. They're not selling chaos, right? They're selling information about the chaos. Like it's not that I get you. If you don't want to see the chaotic stuff happening, I totally understand. But they're not creating it. It is just out there. And, the only thing they're reporting is the thing that gets clicks. The thing that gets clicks is chaos, right? Like wild events happening. That's, I'm not blaming them for it because they have to in order to survive. If they don't have a job.
And the media that caused the problem. In Scientology, it was...
The media doesn't cause the problem. Like, the war in Ukraine was not caused by the media. Okay, that is not the case. So in my opinion, this is completely wrong. It's not correct. The media didn't cause the problem.
It's discovered that as many as 1 in 4 people spend their whole lives keeping those around them feeling worried and overwhelmed.
In this economy, if you plan on...
Wow, okay, 1 in 4 keep them worried and overwhelmed. No, well, I don't think so. I think people just discuss the news. I don't, like, what, I don't think so. I'd like to see a citation for this. Like, what I'm hearing is a lot of statistics from these videos that don't seem to have any citation or any basis for having done them. Was this done by Scientology? Was this done by an independent organization? Where did this statistic come from? I don't know. But I feel like, okay, you've said 1 in 4 people do this. How did you confirm that? I know people like to talk about the news, but I don't think people are sort of saying, oh, well, it's all chaos because I saw an article on, drug statistics on the news. What do you think about that?
Keeping your jobs. You better be willing to do whatever it takes. All right, that's it.
They cause others to have a distorted idea of how threatening the world is. The problem is, our health and our sanity, our level of activity, and even our ambition are all affected by how dangerous we perceive the environment to be.
Okay. Yeah, I get that too much news can make you feel threatened and things like that. Like, I totally think you should disconnect. If you're getting to the point where you're a recluse, not going out for fear of being attacked, then maybe you should take a break from the... I totally get you. But I think this is sort of really... It's my opinion that this is very inaccurate. I don't... if somebody is just informed on the latest current events, I don't think they're locking themselves. I think this is more a parody of or a mischaracterization of people that are informed on current events. I really don't think this is the case. I think that the average person is going to be informed but not overwhelmed by the news. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, maybe you should stop watching the news. I watch the news. I have breaks. There's sometimes where I'm like, wow, it's just too ridiculous out there. I'll have a break. And that's okay. Like, it's this all or nothing mentality that I have an issue with, because in my opinion, they are sort of saying, well, don't get information. And that is one of the signs of a cult in the bite model. Right, and that's just my opinion, that Scientology is a cult. It's my opinion. Don't sue me. It's just my opinion. But in the bite model that Ember just so fantastically sort of modeled, control of information is one of the tick boxes, right? Control of information. So, what a cult will do is try to restrict what information that you have access to and make sure that the only information is coming through them. It's coming through the lens of that organization or that cult, that religion, that their leaders, their people, their members, their representatives is the word I was looking for, right? Like, they're the only ones to give you information. And that's a problem. I think that there is a black and white fallacy being done here, that you either are so tormented by the news that you can't go out and you're an agoraphobic, or you don't watch it at all. And I think that's a mistake. I think you can be relatively informed while not paying so much attention to the news that you're destroying your own psyche doing it. I think there is a good middle ground where you can be informed without being overwhelmed. And I think that's really what should be strived for. And like I say, take breaks. I take a break from, looking up, because in Australia, because we've got sort of a 12-hour difference to Eastern time, usually you get up in Australia and you think, what dumb crap has Trump done today? Like, what stupidity is being done by Trump today? And then you look up the news and you get a rundown of all the stupid shit he's done and said, and, standing in front of the ballroom saying he's going to have drones on the roof was the great one yesterday. That was fun. Wake up, look at the news, and Trump's putting drones on his ballroom roof. So apparently it's an armed ballroom. That's what you get. And at certain points I have to go, no, this is too stupid. It's too absurd. It's take a break. And that's okay. That's all right. Being aware of your situation is totally fine. And we shouldn't confuse, things in the news with how everybody is around us. I get that. I'm all for that. But just labeling all news bad because of that is a mistake too. That is the black and white fallacy. All one way or all the other. And that isn't necessarily something that we have to do.
In other words, the more overwhelming the environment seems to you, the more powerless you'll feel and the less efficient you'll be at handling life. A person in a situation which seems overwhelming will tend to do nothing about it. But in fact, when trying to handle any overwhelming...
Okay, so I just want to pay attention to lighting here, right? They're using lighting in a way that's sort of bad, good, bad, good. I remember doing semiotics in university. Semiotics is the study of signs and signals. It's all about what things represent in life, right? Interesting concept. A lot of it was sort of realizing and really analyzing, if somebody's wearing pure white, it represents purity, it represents innocence, it represents life, it represents a lot of these things. If someone is using pure black in something, it represents death, it represents darkness and evil and all of these. Like, this sort of use of lighting is sort of going, oh, it's bad if you're in this situation, but it's good if you're in this one. It really is using semiotics to convey a message of darkness and despair and light. Now, you might think that's an artistic choice. It's my opinion that they're sort of saying, hey, without Scientology, you're in darkness, and with it, you've got this light coming in. Hey, just open the curtains. Just saying.
When trying to handle any overwhelming situation, you can always find something about that situation that you can confront or comfortably face doing.
Yeah, but you can do that even if you watch the news. You can do that when you watch the news. I don't think that sort of, if you are sort of, I guess, addicted to paradox, just to make an analogy, if you're sort of addicted to that bad news, that might be a problem. But I don't think most people are like that. And there may be many reasons why people feel powerless. In my opinion, it's just a mistake to say, oh, it's the news that is making us all feel powerless. That's the only problem. It's far more complex than that. Different people have different problems, and just sort of lumping them in is not useful. This is really terrible stuff. Really terrible, in my opinion.
Scientology, you'll learn several specific things you can do to lessen the threat and increase your command over your environment. For example...
So, do we see the juxtaposition between don't listen to the news, they're all bad, they're just out to get you and make you afraid and powerless, as opposed to, in my opinion, they're basically framing it as, listen to the people in the Church of Scientology. Those other people, the suppressive people, are bad. They're just out to get you, right? They're just out to get you. Listen to us instead. But they're still promoting, as we saw from the last video, that there's suppressive people trying to make you fail, trying to get you, trying to harm you, right? They're kind of reframing that. They're not alleviating the sense of threat, in my opinion. They are reframing it to be anybody outside of Scientology. Anybody who warns you about any of the things in Scientology. Anybody that gives you bad news about the world around you. They're the suppressive people. Don't listen to them, listen to us. This is one of the things that I believe a cult does, in my opinion. They will frame anybody giving you anything from outside it as some kind of evil merchants of chaos, these evil people trying to suppress you. No, sometimes people are just inconsiderate.
If you were to simply take a walk and actually inspect the environment around you, you could perceive for yourself that it's not as dangerous as it's being made to seem. Once people are less threatened by the environment, they tend to resurge.
Without Scientology, you have a reactive mind and trapped thetans. Well, I know that thetans are the souls of aliens, which I don't believe in them. I don't believe in them. It's never been demonstrated that they exist. I would love to debate a Scientologist, to be honest with you. I'd love to talk to one and sort of examine why they think this is true. But usually a reactive mind, I know that a reactive mind in psychology sort of, it describes somebody doing behaviors sort of from the limbic system. And keep in mind, I'm not a psychologist, but this is my understanding, that you're sort of working on instinct and you're reacting to the situation without actually thinking critically about it. So what I'm doing at the moment with sort of a cognitive analysis, thinking about fallacies, thinking about things that don't logically and rationally make sense, is not reactive thinking. Reactive thinking is more the emotional side. Oh, that makes me feel bad. You know, I don't like that. But that's generally not what I do on this show. I will have rational reasons, cognitive rational reasons, not emotional reasons for why I think something is good and bad. And I will have a cognitively generated moral system for the evaluation of what is good and bad. So I don't, you know, I don't think you're right. I think you can be cognitive, unless a reactive mind to Scientology is something else, then I don't know what that is. I really don't. I really do not.
They think they can do more about life, reach outward a little further, and can even become a calming influence upon their immediate environment. You see,
Oh, absolutely, Ray. Absolutely. No, I get you. But you won't find any of the science fiction stuff like thetans and... I mean, they might mention thetans, but they don't explain what they're supposed to be. You won't find any of that stuff in their forward-facing articles and things, in my opinion. I haven't seen any, right? Because they don't... That is sort of information that I believe, and I could be wrong, but from what I've heard... It's released to you as you go up the levels, as you know, it's more presented like a self-help or a life coaching sort of, helpful organization at first, in my opinion. That's how it's presented. And as you go up, those are the secrets that are released. I think that Leah Remini she really brought attention to what they actually believe is the reason for why you have these negative emotions and things like that. So sex doesn't sell with you. Sex absolutely sells to a general population, sure, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
A person is as successful as he is able to adjust the environment to him, not the other way around. The world of threats and danger is an imaginary one, created with lies.
I mean, it's great that he's going to play with his kids, but it doesn't change the fact that his boss is still expecting results. It doesn't change that. I don't know why it would. So that part of his stress hasn't gone away at all. I'm very confused as to how. Like, I think it's great that he's sick of the news. He's going to turn it off and play with his kids. That's fantastic. I can get behind that. Sure, absolutely. Take a break. Absolutely. But I don't get how it solves the problem of his boss saying, "Hey, we're going to have hard financial times. You've got to really step it up, people." I'm not sure how it does that. Maybe you'll find a different job. Maybe you'll get fired. I don't know. I have no idea.
Behind it, there exists the real world, a calmer environment, a place in which man can live and feel better, where there are such things as good neighbors and good spouses, reliable friends, and everyday heroes.
Yeah, I don't think sort of not watching the news is going to necessarily give that to you. I mean, I guess, you know, I mean, so here's an example, right? When I worked in a corporate setting, I wouldn't really, I'm not a big TV watcher at all, right? I wouldn't watch TV in the slightest, right? Like, I really didn't like TV that much, but I did make an effort to at least be abreast of current events because you have something called water cooler talk. And it's not necessarily around a water cooler, but people in the company will generally go, hey, did you hear about the thing? And, you know, it's nice to be able to go, yeah, I did. What do you think of that? And at least have a conversation with them. You know, I think that not being aware or informed can actually lead to a negative social outcome. And that's what I think, because I did not have a clue what they were talking about. And I just went, well, you know what? I'm just going to keep abreast of events. You know, I wouldn't do a deep dive or anything, but I'd keep abreast of events just because I wanted to be able to say, oh, yeah, I did hear about that thing. And it was something to talk about, you know, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, yeah, if you're getting so far into it that you are all doom and gloom, yeah, I get that that's bad, but that is a black and white fallacy. Just because you're informed on the news doesn't mean that you have to go this way. And I sort of support, hey, more people should take breaks from the news and not, you know, get fixated on it. Yeah, absolutely. You know, watch in time, don't watch 20 other shows afterwards. You know, I get you. It's just, you know, it's a problem that you're saying, hey, you should remove yourself from any current events whatsoever. I don't think that's a good thing because you will not be informed about what's going on in the world. And I think it is important to be informed in what's going on in the world as long as it's not, you know, burdening you. I think that is really important. Thetans are in OT levels. Operating thetans after a state of clear is achieved. You remove your reactive mind. Yeah, no, I first you'd have to show that there actually are thetans because as far as I'm aware, nobody's been able to show that they actually exist. You know, this whole state of clear is achieved. You know, to remove a reactive mind, it's important that... So emotional responses, if that is what a reactive mind is that sometimes it's incredibly useful. Sometimes it is incredibly useful. It's necessary. If you get jumped in the street, you're going to act instinctively and emotionally, and that is a good thing, right? It's a good thing that you react. So really what you've got is two types of thinking. You have type 1 and type 2. Type 1 thinking is your instinctive, emotional thinking, your reactions to things. Type 2 is your cognitive thinking. That is the cognitive analysis of things. And while intuitive, the type 1 thinking, intuitive, what I believe you're sort of calling reactive thinking or reactive mind, it's not very accurate. It's not very accurate. It has a lot of tendencies to be wrong. It can be incredibly useful because it's fast. It's incredibly fast. It's basically the speed of your reactions. It can be incredibly useful. Like I said, if you get jumped in the street, you don't want to overanalyze it. That's something that you shouldn't do. Type 2 thinking, cognitive thinking, is a lot more precise. It's a lot more, it's accurate a lot more. But it's slow. It's very slow. So it depends if your necessity is time dependent or not. So it can be incredibly useful. So sort of going, well, you know, if you remove your reactive mind, your inclination to, for instance, this person, right? The woman had an reaction to just grab him and pull him back from the bus. There's nothing wrong with that. She didn't go, oh, should I or shouldn't I? I'll do a cognitive development. No, it's just, oh, that guy's in trouble. Let's grab him. That's a reactive. That is type 1 thinking. It's intuitive. There's nothing wrong with that. But it can be wrong a lot of the time. We just got to understand that. But time critical, evaluating things is not useful. In that scenario, if she evaluated the speed of the bus, tried to consider, you know, really thought about whether he noticed it or not, really thought about certain things, he would be flattened. Not useful.
A world where people live calmer and happier lives.
Yes. Yes, that is my opinion as well, Noise. It's oversimplification of mental health and an oversimplification of neurology, psychology, and psychiatry. It's a completely simplistic view of it. It is a problem because things are not black and white in this world. It's always a mistake to do this kind of fallacy. Check a volcano. Yeah, no, I get that they think that Zeno put thetans in the volcano and blew them up with, I think, hydrogen bombs. Okay. Solutions for a dangerous environment. Well, I will say it doesn't really solve a dangerous environment. All it does is restrict your information to that which is coming through the church, in my opinion. So I think, and some of the things that they said as a solution for a dangerous environment conflicts with the earlier video that sort of said, hey, people that tell you this bad news or whatever are suppressive people because they're telling you bad news about the media and about news and about these stories that come. They're saying, hey, all of this bad stuff is out there. And in the reverse, you know, bad news exists. Like, we can't just go through life, in my opinion, just pretending it doesn't. Because then we won't be informed. And what's even wilder is they're criticizing, you know, the news for showing us about disease and vaccines when we had the most disastrous calamity in the US in history was the pandemic. You know, if we listen to them, many more people would have died. And that's a problem. So ask yourself, would you be happier that so many more people died? I know I wouldn't. But, you know, in general, it's not too bad. I get you. But I really worry that is sort of that they may be trying to restrict your information to just what comes through the Church of Scientology. And I think that is dangerous. My opinion is that is dangerous because they will have a concerted effort to keep you in there. Yeah, no, we've checked volcanoes, no thetans. That we've checked them, no thetans. I mean, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure that, and we've got scientists that exclusively deal with volcanoes. They're called volcanologists, I believe. I think they're volcanologists. They deal exclusively with volcanoes. And I can confidently say that none of them have ever found thetans. Yeah, volcanologists. They study volcanoes exclusively. Never found thetans. Who knew? Maybe they're invisible, incorporeal, and, you know, somehow unable to be found. I don't know. But I'm more than happy to have discussions or debates or conversations with Scientologists. They just don't seem to talk to people a lot. And do keep in mind, if you are a Scientologist and looking to sue me, all of this was my opinion, so don't even bother. Like, don't even bother, because I was very careful to keep all of this my opinion, which is protected free speech under the law. Congratulations. And you know, I guess I'm criticizing these videos specifically, and not today, not Scientology in whole. It is my opinion. It's a cult. I have reservations about the Scientology speedrunning that's happening at the moment. However, I think it may have a side benefit of drawing attention to just how harmful Scientology is and just how much they do not want people to know what they are doing, which, in my opinion, over history has been a really bad thing when a religion prevents anybody outside from seeing what they're doing. I don't think that goes well. It doesn't go well. I can point to, you know, Church of Latter-day Saints and, you know, other religions that have kept secret what they're doing. Just doesn't end well. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has been interesting. I just decided to do Scientology. I don't even know why, but hey, it's been fascinating. I wish you the best for all of your good evening, good night. I will be back with the debate review in a couple of days. I will be doing that with the wonderful Better Than Ember. We will be doing part 2 of the debate that was started on her channel. So go and check that out. And I definitely will see you in the next one. Do be kind to yourself. Do be kind to yourself. Yeah, if you are getting depressed by the news, as sometimes I am, take a break. Yeah, just go, yeah, no, tomorrow I'm not even tuning in. Like, seriously, just take a break. I totally understand it. It seems like you have to be informed every day. That's not the case. It's not going to kill you to have one day off, you know, seriously. At the same time, you don't have to go, well, I'm never watching the news again. Just have a break. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. When somebody wrongs you, they're not necessarily out to get you. Sometimes they've just said something or done something that you don't like, but they may think they're doing the right thing. They may think, you know, they're helping you. Sometimes. Like, just don't look in this terms of black and white and there's no middle ground. It's not good to do. Like, I'm not saying that they're definitely you've just misinterpreted what they're doing. Just don't jump to conclusions. Take in all the data instead of just making this, well, they've done something wrong. They're a suppressive person. Cut them out or change them in some way. Just be kind to people. And I will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.
To what new horizons can we look now? Where are tomorrow's opportunities? The frontiers of the future are not on any map. But now, what's ahead of us?